Hi, St. James. This is Mary Lou Saylor. I'm the church administrator and communications coordinator here. And Wick and I wanted to come to you today to talk to you about things that are going on because we want to restart coming back to church. And so Wick has some thoughts. He's our church council chairperson, and he's kind of been thrust into the role of helping to really combine all the efforts that are going into going back to church. And so he has some thoughts, and then we're going to discuss some questions.
Okay, well, I greet you all also. Thank you, Mary Lou. I want to greet each and every one of you viewing this video. Since I was asked to be the chairman of the St. James Church Council, I find myself in this particular strange situation as the church spokesperson since we can't meet together. I know our president's okayed that all churches should open up immediately, and we heard Mary Lou was telling me of at least one or two here in our council or our district that have done that. However, our South Carolina United Methodist Church Bishop Holston has said he really thinks that June 14th is a great date, and that gives us a chance to get all our things in a row here so that we can have a smooth opening. Some church leaders in other states have also pushed back against the president's decision that everybody ought to be open here. There are those of you, I'm sure, that want to come back immediately. You know, hey, what's wrong with that? And I'll tell you, I wrote a little note on church giving and tithing in March, and I said at that time, remember your tithing and giving, but by mid-April we're going to be back full operation doing everything we always did. So little did I know at that time that it was going to be a longer and drawn-out situation. So there are also those of you that feel that the 14th is too soon. We have a strategic planning group, which we'll talk about, and we're focusing on the opening on the 14th, and we need your survey results back as soon as possible in order to help us decide what form our worship will take, indoors, outdoors, or delayed. So I know that some of you, and hopefully all of you by early this next week, will have the letter that we've written and the survey, and we ask you to fill that out and send it back. We'll probably have some telephone fallback later on to try and fill out those that didn't
Send in the survey.
Send in the survey.
Right? Yeah.
I got my tongue all tangled up. Excuse me. Okay.
It's okay. And this is a really difficult situation when we don't have a permanent pastor. We, again, thank Reverend Jane Jenkins for coming in and helping us with our sermons and our services and the pastoral care, but she's not responsible for St. James. So that's why this committee, the SPG committee, is so important. So explain a little bit about what they do and how we came to coming up with a letter and the survey for everyone.
Okay. The SPG is an abbreviation for Strategic Planning Group, and it's a group that the Church Council sanctioned as a kind of like a steering committee for us. We've dealt with the finances, what happens since we're not meeting together, and right now our major goal is to try and get St. James back to functioning. This SPG is made up from Church Council members. It's sanctioned by us, and we're working really hard, as Mary Lou said, since we don't have a pastor that's keeping us all focused on what we're going to do, we're working really hard to try and get plans for getting our church restarted. When we make decisions and we finalize these, we certainly are going to take them back to the St. James Church Council, let all the members debate these sort of things and approve them before we come back and say this is exactly what we're going to do.
We put together the letter. Betty and Wick were so kind to come in on Thursday. We had it printed out, and they stuffed all the envelopes and took it to the post office. And obviously we have a holiday weekend, so some people, I've already heard from some people that have gotten theirs in the mail, and we got ours at our house too. But it may be Tuesday, it may be Wednesday, but why is it so important for people to return this survey to us by Friday?
Well, there's two main reasons there. First part of the survey that you'll see is in a box is kind of an aha moment the SPG had when we were meeting and trying to discuss how to have a survey and what to do. And the aha moment is that with our demographics, perhaps with problems with Wi-Fi or not having internet, there are some members in our church that are not able to watch our services. And we intend to continue on live streaming our services for the foreseeable future for the benefit of those of us that may feel uncomfortable with coming back on the 14th, or those of us that perhaps are homebound or are not able to come back on the 14th. So we're trying to get a feel for how many people are kind of being left out of these online services, and then have to try and figure out some way to get this information, the service to those that don't have the ability to get it on their own. So we'll work through that. That's something that's important on our minds. Secondly, the second part of the survey says we need to know how many of you are willing to return, even with the virus and strict limitations, to how we'd be able to have a service. Is June the 14th a comfortable date to restart, in your opinion? If it's not, what sort of things in your mind have to take place before you would decide to come back to St. James? It's each one of us has to make the decisions of whether we feel comfortable or not comfortable. And we in the church shouldn't try and force you to come back at this time. We just want to know if the 14th is a good date. Second question along that line, at restart, are you more comfortable with an outside service or one in our sanctuary? The outside service would probably be in our parking lot, have speakers, and the pastor would give the sermon outside. And we haven't decided whether you bring your own lawn chairs or whether we park in our cars, how we do it. But we would do it as safely as possible outside, or we'll have it in our sanctuary. If we have it in our sanctuary, I think Mary Lou is going to ask me, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What kinds of things, when we come back to church, what kinds of things can people expect to happen and not to happen? Because we're used to a certain, different things that we all do, and life is different now than it was when we stopped going to church.
Right. Well, certainly, the buzzword social distancing is upon, this will apply to us as we exit the church, and as we sit in the pews. The CDC is still saying 6 feet between people, and so every other pew is probably going to be blocked off, and those of you that love to sit clear in the back may be encouraged to sit closer to the front in order to keep our social distancing. Masks are recommended. This is a touchy subject. Some people say, I'm fine with masks, and some people say, no, I don't need a mask. And the CDC again has come back and said the more important people that have masks are ones, it's more likely to convey the coronavirus or to prevent it from being conveyed from people that may have been exposed or they're asymptotic. They don't have any signs that they're contagious. And then those that wear masks that don't have these symptoms, it'll simply be an additional preventive measure there. Another question is, how will we do communion? Where we put it in the cup, or when we have the small cups and hand you the bread, are things that won't happen here when we restart. Now, it's my understanding that there are companies now that are prepackaging a kind of a do-it-yourself communion where you'll be handed a sealed package that has some sort of bread and juice in it. So that
and we have that. I ordered some of those, so we have those already, and that will be up to the pastors when, if we wait until Reverend Wolf comes and joins us, or whenever. We feel like we have to get through a certain number, I think, of services to figure out some things to have the comfort level of the people that are helping as well as the people that are attending.
Okay. And of course, how do we take up a collection? Probably we'll have the collection plate or some basket at the back of the church, and you can put your collection or your envelopes in that collection plate as you enter or you leave the church. We will not pass the plates. And so those are some of the things that will happen here. We'll have our ushers are going to be well trained, and they will try and help keep the flow of people smoothly coming into the church and as we leave, so we don't end up with a gigantic group of people all leaving at the same time. We may leave one row at a time. Who knows? We'll have to see.
Right. So what kinds of things won't be happening when we return?
When our initial opening right now, the feelings of the SPG based on several different things that we've seen is that we'll not have a toddler's nursery, we'll not have children or adult Sunday school. In fact, we're probably going to kind of rope off the education wing and the Family Life Center so that we don't have to spend the money and time to make sure everything is wiped down just for a few people wandering through there. So initially, we'll not have Sunday school, although certainly I think we'll be working on how to do this safely. We'll not have an early service to start out with. The thing that breaks Betty's heart and choir members and most of you as United Methodists is that the CDC and a number of different groups that are looking at this have really determined that singing is much more prone to spread the virus than speaking. And so they're recommending no singing, no choir initially. In fact, as we speak, Betty is in removing the hymnals from the church. And so when you come back, there won't be hymnals there initially.
And part of that's because it's anything that people touch. You know, we just are trying to keep people as safe as we possibly can. And when things like that are removed, it's also less to clean. And when we start getting back into some sort of a normal, quote, normal rhythm of things, then some of these things will be added back too.
As soon as possible, safely.
Right, yes, exactly.
Okay. Also, our hospitality center that when Wayne Smith was here and we were really working hard on Connect, we have a hospitality center in the Narthex, and we're going to have to not do that initially. Crowds are not conducive to safe separation of people, and so also no handshakes and no hugging. So
that's a tough one.
that's a tough.
Yeah.
This church is a hugging and handshaking church,
exactly.
and initially that's just not going to happen here. I hope it won't. Well, yeah, I wish it would, but it won't happen here. I'd like to ask Mary Lou if she has any other thoughts that she had.
No, I think it's just really important that everybody fills out that survey because it's important. Your voice needs to be heard with the group that's going to be making that decision, and just, you know, stuff it in an envelope or drop it by the church and whatever way works for you, and get it back here by Friday. Obviously on Fridays we're closed here at the office, so if you're going to do that, please mail it. But that way, you know, we get a number of these in, we get some sort of gauge on what people are feeling at home, because we can't at this point call everybody to find out. We thought this would be the easiest way to try to get the first kind of level of information coming in.
Our demographics as a church that has a lot of members 65 and older says we need to be careful in decisions that we make and what we do here. I'd like to close with a couple thoughts about reopening that Reverend Arthur Holt put on his Facebook. You know, Arthur was our supply pastor along with Candace Sloan when Chris Barrett was not feeling well. And Arthur has a lot of wisdom in his 40 years as being a pastor. So, if I may, I'd like to read these two things that we're in today before we close it out. He says, wear a mask and go if you're comfortable in doing so. Otherwise, stay home a while longer, which Arthur says he plans to do. So he may not go back on the first Sunday where he normally goes to church. He says, I know and I'm sure the Lord knows our hearts. Also, St. James is going to continue to live stream our Sunday services for those that want to wait a while longer or aren't able to return. Secondly, Arthur said, just don't let a thought or a person bully you into going against your best judgment. If you just had enough faith, you go to church sounds a lot like this. If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down from the pinnacle of the temple. So we close, just keep us in your prayers, keep us informed through the surveys, through emails to Mary Lou, to Wick, or any of us, so that we can be the best we can be in terms of being informed when we finally decide to open the church doors again.
Thank you so much, Wick. We appreciate it.
You're welcome, Mary Lou.